What up, people? What up? What up? It's your boy Kenneth, 100 Years of Wealth, back. If you're watching this video, what up? Thanks for tapping in again. I know that there's been a little bit of a hiatus for the last few months because your boy just been busy kind of moving around. And I want to kind of give you the details on that and, why I wasn't making any YouTube content. And this is shout out to all my 290 followers that have held on waiting. I know that we're not the biggest group out there, but we're growing, all right, and we're not going to stop. So I stopped making YouTube content just because there was really no reason, to be honest with you. It was like my rhythm of getting into my office, sitting down for 20 minutes, making some content about mortgage related stuff, and then like starting to follow up with the podcast, doing the sit downs once a week. It all got shifted, I would say, in like late December because I started some construction on my home, and it just started throwing off my schedule where, because the contractors were here, I had to be here with them in the morning, kind of monitoring stuff and giving them access, and my dogs, and pulling my dogs into the house. And then on top of that, my lease came up at my office space where I was normally recording and doing the podcast, and it just didn't make sense for me to renew that lease at this time. My company, most of my agents, or all of my agents, work remotely, so I have the office space for some different purposes. And then at this time in the market being really down compared to where we were like a year ago, the office was more or less just like just an additional expense. And I didn't really like the setup so much because I had to pay for parking every day. So on top of my lease, I was paying an additional $400 or $500 a month in parking, and eating there every day was just running up the expenses related to that office. And then when I'm weighing out the benefits of that office, it just wasn't making sense at this time. So I think like later on, maybe towards the end of the year, as the market starts to adjust, we'll probably look at a different space. But for now, all of the agents are working remotely anyway, and we're just gonna keep it all pushing and run the operation from the crib. But I want to tap back in and get back on the videos, because the reality of it is that the videos that I was dropping were valuable. I'm giving information on how to become a homeowner, what programs are out there. And even though they're not like viral content, I get that, it's been a mission to even get monetized with that, but I do understand that there is value for it, right? So, and that's all I know, right? Like I know different things. Obviously I'm a creative, I paint. So you'll see different things like that within my channel. But the thing that I can kind of spit out and give you some information that possibly could help you is about purchasing a home, refinancing a loan, mortgage finance related stuff. Obviously I have my perspectives on things outside of that, but that's really where my true informational value comes from, until I, kind of shift and start maybe putting some effort and energy into like showing you some artistic, creative stuff that I do, and just different things like that. But point being is that as anyone that's been paying attention to the market knows, rates have kind of ticked back up again. The Fed thought that they were going to have inflation under better control, and then a month or so later, some of their data proves to be incorrect, and now they're shifting back into a period where they need to do quantitative easing, and or wait, let me take that back. Not quantitative easing, where they need to do financial tightening, where they are basically raising interest rates. Therefore, there's less credit available out in the market, or the credit is more expensive, so people are less likely to take advantage of it, hopefully slowing down the economy, therefore giving supply chains a chance to catch up and basically have excess product, which should then lower the cost of some of those products, right? So there's a whole like chain of events that are all related to inflation, and I understand it, and it looks like we're going to be in a higher rate market for a little while because of the fact that inflation hasn't come down the way that they've said. There's a person that I probably referenced before. His name is his YouTube channel is Clear Value Tax. I kind of tap into him mostly nowadays because there's no speculation, or let me take that back. There's no like it's not like a lot of like hype. Maybe that's the best word to say. He's just kind of like direct with, this is the information that we're getting, this is the historical relation to that information, and this is what's likely to happen. Even he had to kind of correct, or not really correct, but had to kind of like say, hey, look, it looks different than it did previously. But the way like his approach to things is very humble and very just like informative. So it's not like, hey, last month I was telling you to buy NFTs and now I'm not telling you to buy NFTs. You know, it's more of a professional perspective on the markets, and I really do value that. So, you know, I've been watching him and taking in some other information, and I do think that, and one of the things that he pointed out was that as inflation comes down, the easier low hanging fruit of inflation are the things that are easy to change, right? Like maybe gas prices dip down because of a certain relationship opens up, or you know certain oil reserves are tapped into, and then gas can come down a bit, and then that has a certain effect on everything else. Once those things like make their quick adjustments, because those are like the ones that can, you know, overnight the price can change and immediately start affecting the things that are attached to it. Once that happens, then all the other stuff that makes up that bottom part of inflation, the word that Clear Value Tax uses is it's more entrenched. It's entrenched inflation, so it's a little bit harder to get to. It takes more efforts, and it's just harder to get that inflation to go down. So it's going to take longer. It's going to take more rate hikes, and the Fed's keeping the rates high for a longer period of time. So that's not good news in the sense that, like, you know, for market driven industries like my industry and a lot of sales related industries, it's like that stuff has a very high impact on your immediate income, right? So that's the reality of it. We're still in a market where, for people that are in rate or market driven industries, which adds to some level, we're all attached to the market, but some industries are directly attached to it. Like my clients won't do business with me based on a certain interest rate in today's market. While, you know, different companies, they're like I've mentioned before, my wife's an attorney. They're not really as driven by the interest rates in the market. Maybe some of their clients may adjust how they spend money based on different things going on in the market, but overall, it's a longer trickle down to, let's say, an attorney or, you know, certain lines of work. While in sales like mortgage and real estate, it's a direct impact immediately. So we are about 1 year into this higher rate market, where rates, like literally in the start of 2022, just started going through the roof. And, you know, like here's my feedback on this past 1 year look back. Running a company where I have, you know, throughout this last year, we've had anywhere between maybe 24 to 30 loan officers. My agents are independent, so they're all kind of going after business in their own method. You know, some people are working directly with realtors, some people are calling leads to try to create refinance transactions. But what like that gives me a really good ability to see different things that are going on in the industry and see what's working and what's not working. And like I said, I've mentioned this before in different conversations that I've had with you guys. But what I've noticed is that the reality of it is that supply and demand is truly still going to be the name of the game when it comes to at least our industry, right? If you are in an area where there is tons of available property, you might see property values dip a little bit quicker in those areas, or have some sort of you know, yeah, you're gonna be if you're in an area where there's a excess inventory, prices are still gonna have the ability to dip down quicker than an area like, let's say, LA, where there's not excess inventory. Every property on the market, or every property that does come on the market, can likely have a buyer that can fill it. Maybe the price softens a little bit because properties are sitting on the market a little bit longer, but maybe not. You know, I actually just sold a property in the city of Compton, and I just helped that client purchase a property, or one of my agents helped them on the real estate side purchase a property in Carson, California. They both sold for we listed the Compton property at 675, and we listed it knowing that probably go for a little bit lower. We were thinking, hey, if we can get 660 out of this, we did well. And we got 660 out of it. And keep in mind, my sellers, they bought that property in 2019. So it's been like, and We just sold, so roughly like 3.5, 4 years, and they went from 480, I think the purchase price was, to selling it for 660. Close to $200,000 in equity gain in the city of Compton that has had like a negative stigma, but it's supply and demand. It's proximity to a metropolitan area that has a lot of jobs and and activity going on. So Compton isn't that far from downtown Los Angeles. It's a neighboring city to Los Angeles. And it has a lot of nice homes in it. So you'll see that even through stigmas and like past, like, oh, what, like I heard it was this type of neighborhood, supply and demand will still reign supreme, because people are like, hey, look, if I can't afford over here in Los Angeles or closer to this area or whatever the case is, this is close enough, or this is close to it, and the prices are more in my range, and I'm going to be part of that constantly increasing or betterment of the community. And I don't say that in the sense of like it's a bad community or not. You know what I mean? Like, obviously we have areas that have had certain issues that are coming up and changing, and there's a lot of areas in Compton that have just always been nice, and people just don't know because they've had stigmas related to gang activity or whatever the case is. But my point is that you see these areas that are quote unquote undervalued, or their prices haven't reached the prices of like neighboring areas. Trust me, they'll get there. And when you're selling a home to someone for $660,000, now that's a family moving into that community that is likely, and they did a normal loan, so it wasn't like a cash purchase, but they're likely two income households. You know what I mean? Like it starts to set a different type of tone in a community that just enriches the area. You know what I mean? Like so that my point in saying that was just that, like, you have these things where, even in areas that were previously known as, not desirable, they are desirable, and people are moving into them, and the property values are still going up. And the reason is because scarcity. There's not a lot of options, so you move in and you make it what you want it to be, type thing. The house that they bought, the sellers that I helped sell in Compton, bought a house in Carson, which is not too far, just a little further south, 405, 91 freeway area. They bought that house for $830,000 in this market, right? And that's roughly what they had listed the property for. I think they might have listed it for $825,000. So in this market, you still have enough competition for people to get what they're asking for on the sale price. You still have enough buyers out there to where like a seller can find someone to purchase their property at the price that they're looking for. So for what that tells me is that incomes are still strong. And the inflation and a lot of the negative things that we're dealing with in the economy are gonna work themselves out. They are mainly related to COVID and a reaction to COVID and all the different things that happened, the supply chain slowdown, the influx of money into the market through the government. Those are all things that shot up inflation. So my advice, or it's not really advice, but just my perspective when I'm thinking of agents that are operating in this industry right now and what their perspective is going forward, it's the same thing I've been saying probably for the last 6 months to a year. You just have to kind of buckle down into your field and really put yourself out there. Do the things that you weren't doing in a time where the market was easier, and you'll see that you can probably produce the same results. I had a loan officer last year do more transactions than she did the previous year, and she made close to $200,000 in a down market. And that was only averaging about 2 deals a month, right? So that's the beauty of our industry, where off of one transaction, you can make a decent amount because you are independent. You are taking home 100% of the commission. You don't have a broker like myself, like taking a split. With us, we charge our agents a flat fee. So we really are incentivizing agents to build their own business. And if you do so, you can make a lot of money. Or let me change that word. You can make good money in this industry. Everyone's situation varies and how they'll attack it. But my overall point of this video is welcome back. I've fallen off, but one thing that I'm always preaching is consistency. There might be a moment where whatever you're doing, you kind of fell off. Jump back on it. Just break out of the mold. Like right now, I'm sitting here in my office. I hadn't made any videos for a little while, getting into the groove of the day's work. And then I'm like, you know what? get up, go get your camera, go get the light from the garage, because I had moved all this stuff from my office, brought it back. It was in the garage. I'm like, let's get this cracking. Let's go. Let's get back on the consistency level in it. If you operate like that, you can't lose. You know, you got to stay on it. If I would have just wrapped it up, never made a YouTube video again, you know, probably would have jumped back on the account like, oh man, I don't want to do this anymore, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, that thing is done. And I truly would have failed at it. I would have been like, okay, well, I failed at the YouTube thing. Let's move on, you know? When I stop and think like, what's the goal with YouTube? The goal is to ultimately build a following, spread positive information, share information that could potentially help someone get onto the next level, and help out people in my industry gain from my experience, learn, have a share a perspective on the market, and fine tune it as we go. You know what I mean? So like everything that you start now isn't gonna look how it looks in 5 years. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's okay to be rough around the edges sometimes. Just stay consistent and improve as you go, and you shall do what you're supposed to do, whether that's become the biggest YouTube channel on earth or just supply information to an audience that takes that information and possibly uses it. So 100 Years of Wealth, once again, thanks for tapping in. Go ahead and like and subscribe. Back on the content, gotta make sure that I stay consistent, giving you the info, and we're gonna have some fun in here. We're gonna get back on the podcast. And then what I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna bring you guys in on the improvements that I'm making to my house. Always been very private with that, just because, I don't know, man, sometimes like when people are showing you their sick house or their car, I'm just like, all right, that's cool, but are you showing it to shit on people? Or like, you know, there's just sometimes like I'm not one to try to be flossy, and like I'm always thinking from the perspective of like, are you coming off like a douchebag, or are you coming off like you're just trying to show off some shit you got? And that's really never my perspective. If anything, I realize that, hey, you do got to show off some things, or not show off, but you do got to show some things, because the reason why I'm where I'm at, and I've had some success in my life, and I'm gaining success and pushing towards goals and trying to achieve and trying to share that information with other people, is because I seen someone else with it. I seen my uncle way back in the days have a sick house up here in View Park in Los Angeles. No shock that I end up buying a house right down the street from him, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, that stuff actually does matter. It is good. It's all about how you do it, of course, but it is good to share information, because there's someone somewhere renting a room somewhere, living in the ghetto, struggling to get by, and that little piece of inspiration that you give them may actually spark something in them and help them get to the next phase, the next level. You know, so shout out to everyone trying to make it happen. 100 Years of Wealth. Your boy is back to continue to spread the love. Please like and subscribe, and check back. I'll have some more videos for you guys coming soon. Thanks.